Good afternoon and warmest of welcome to my Wunderkammer. This is episode 2. First of all, I would like to thank each and every one of you for listening to episode 1, and I'm so glad that you actually decided to come back for more. In this episode, we are going to talk about haunted places. And it's really exciting now because I'm also decided to make like a illustrated version of my podcast. You can check it out on YouTube. Lena's Wunderkammer, the same name as the podcast, is the YouTube channel. And then you can see episode 2 there with different illustrations and some photographies as well, plus the script. So if you are fed up with listening to podcasts, you can just read it yourself as well. So it will all be on screen. Warmest of welcome. Anyway, today we are going to talk about haunted places now. This is going to be a journey through the realms of the unknown, where the past whispers through the corridors of the present and shadows of yesteryear come to life. Because since the dawn of humanity, haunted places have captured our imagination and sent shivers down our spines. So from ancient ruins to modern-day buildings, these eerie locations are steeped in mystery, folklore and history. They serve as gateways to the unknown, allowing us to connect with the supernatural and explore the boundaries of our understanding. Throughout history, haunted places have held a significant place in folklore and legends. Tales of ghostly apparitions, restless spirits, and unexplained phenomena have been passed down through generations, becoming an integral part of our cultural heritage. So we have the phantoms that roam the castles of Europe, to the spirits that inhabit the forests of Japan. These stories remind us of the thin veil that separates our world from the afterlife. But what is it then about haunted places that fascinates us so deeply and always has and always probably will? Well, perhaps it is the thrill of the unknown, perhaps it is the allure of the supernatural, or the sense of wonder that comes from exploring the uncharted territories of our existence. Haunted places challenge our perception of reality, and it invites us to question the boundaries of what we believe to be true. And very often you will have some skeptics who can explain this with different theories. And that is fine, because a lot of them can probably be just products of our own imagination. But then we have the unexplainable ones, and I'm going to dwell into those today. So in this episode, we will delve into the chilling tales of 3 unique haunted locations that I have picked out particularly for this episode. And that is the Poveglia Island in Italy, the Aokigahara Forest in Japan, and the ancient Ram Inn in England. And each of these places really has a dark and eerie history to them, filled with ghostly encounters and spine-tingling stories that will leave you on the edge of your seat, ladies and gentlemen. So, gather around, dim the lights, and prepare yourself for a journey into the world of haunted places where history, legend, and the supernatural converge in a symphony of fear and fascination. Let's dive in, shall we? Now, throughout human history, ghost stories, they haven't just served as spine-tingling entertainment, but they have also been this window into our evolving understanding of life and death and the afterlife. So many of the oldest and best documented tales of haunted places emerge from ancient texts and rituals and folklore, and they each offer this glimpse into how earlier cultures and generations before us grappled with the unknown. And I found some standout examples of this. For instance, we have the ancient Greek ghosts and the realm of Hades. So you have the Odyssey, which is from the 8th century before Christ, and One of the earliest literary sources of ghostly encounters is actually Homer's Odyssey. In Book 11, often referred to as Nekuya, Odysseus' journey to the underworld and encounters the shades of the dead. So here we have the ghosts of heroes, we have the ghosts of mythological figures, and even personal acquaintances that all of a sudden appear to him. And their presence underscoring the tenuous boundary between the world of the living and the realm of Hades. And I'm just saying the narratives here. It lays the groundwork for later ghost lore. And it also kind of embeds the hauntings in the cultural fabric of the Western world. Then we have the cultural impact of it, because the ancient Greeks believed that the spirits of the dead lingered at the edges of the living world until properly honored through burial and rituals. So their encounters with these shades were not merely scares, but deeply tied to their understanding of fate, guilt, honor, and destiny. Then I chose to focus on the Roman rituals and the restless dead, because the Lemuria festival in ancient Rome, you had the ritual of Lemuria, which was observed around the 5th century to the early imperial period. That was a stark reminder of the need to appease the unsettled dead. So during this festival, the household heads, the heads of the household, would walk through their homes at night, performing a variety of rites, such as throwing black beans over their shoulders, and they did this to ward off the lemures, the malevolent, restless spirits of those who had not been properly laid to rest, because they would haunt you, according to this belief. And then you had the literary and historical documentation, because you had writings by historians like Livy and poets like Ovid that record these practices, highlighting how seriously early Romans took matters of the afterlife. And we have haunted houses. In this connection, the haunted houses were not fictional constructions of the imagination, but they were actually living spaces that could become overrun with the wrath of sorrow of those who were left behind. And also, of course, we have medieval Europe's haunted legends. And there are so many legends that we could have talked about, but unfortunately, we need the time frame, don't we? So, here it goes. I chose to focus on all the white ladies, the tales of the white lady and the castle phantoms. Because when we enter the medieval era, you have ghost stories that begin to populate the corridors of Europe's ancient castles and abbeys. So among the most famous is, of course, the legends of the White Lady. The White Lady is always a spectral figure draped in grief and often is said to be caught in a loop of tragedy, wandering the halls of forgotten fortresses and castles alike. And manuscript of very early medieval ballads, including those recorded in collections by folklorists like Francis James Child, document these eerie apparitions. So you have the symbolism and you have the social function of this. So these tales, they often serve as moral or cautionary narratives, warning of the consequences of broken vows or unavenged injustices or improper burials, just like the Romans, you know. If you didn't give your dead ones the burial that they actually deserved, then they would come back to haunt you. That was the belief back then, and that is probably still the belief today. So, haunted places in medieval Europe were seen as spaces where the unresolved emotions of the past were spilled over into the present. And that was a powerful reminder of history that refused to be silenced. And then we have the ancient Eastern ghost narratives, because we cannot forget about that part of the world. Because the Chinese and Japanese folklore actually inhabit the most eerie, scariest, sinister ghosts and spirits, I think, of the whole world. So while perhaps they're less globally renowned than their Western counterparts, early ghost stories in Eastern cultures have a rich documented history as well. We have started to become quite interested in Chinese and Japanese folklore and the horror stories of them as well, especially through the different types of movies that are being made today, the horror movies that we all love so much. But we have the classical Chinese literature dating back to the Tang dynasty and possibly earlier than that, that features tales of restless spirits haunting abandoned palaces and temples alike. And these narratives are intertwined with beliefs in ancestral reverence and in the cyclical nature of life and death. To mention quite a few, I had to pick some out, but my attention was caught by the Japanese yurei. Yurei, I think that is the correct pronunciation, I'm not sure. But yeah, any comments on that, please come forward, spell it out, because I would love to pronounce it correctly. But in Japan, there is a tradition that holds that spirits of those who suffered tragic or unjust deaths become yureis. That is sort of akin to Western apparitions. So though many of these stories were later popularized during the Edo period, the roots lie in much older oral traditions, of course. So these ghostly narratives have helped shape Japan's unique cultural approach to haunted places, where nature, spirituality and history converge. Reflections on ancient hauntings. Well, these age-old ghost stories were not invented solely to scare people. They provided a framework for understanding the mysterious forces that govern our existence. So they helped communities navigate grief, they helped them navigate guilt and all of the unknown as well, cementing haunted places as sacred sites where the past remains ever present. These narratives lay the foundation for modern ghost lore and continue to inspire our fascination with haunted locations today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you that if you're listening to the podcast on one of the podcast services, I absolutely love that. Thank you so much. But this is also an illustrated podcast episode. So you can log on to YouTube as well, Lena's Wunderkammer, and you can find my YouTube channel and you can log on if you would like to see the illustrations. The reason why I've done this is simply because I just can't stick to one type of format. I need to spread it, you know. I need to show you what I mean. So it's no worries if you do not look it up on YouTube. This is fine. I do not leave anything out, but you can see the script and you can see the illustrations. But now, let us take a look at haunted places today. Number 1, Poveglia Island in Italy. Imagine this island near Venice, Italy. You know, usually we associate Italy with something nice, something beautiful, something relaxing. And then, boom, we have the island of ghosts. Poveglia's dark past includes being a quarantine station for plague victims. And that is sinister in itself, because think about all of these poor spirits that can haunt this island because of their tragic and painful deaths. But later, as if that is not enough, later we have a mental asylum where inhumane experiments were rumoured to take place every single day, every hour of the day, with very sinister doctors. Now, the island today is completely abandoned, but there are tales, of course, of restless spirits and ghostly screams that continue to haunt those brave enough to visit. The atmosphere of decay, combined with chilling whispers of tortured souls, makes Poveglia a truly terrifying place. Then, number 2, we have the Aokigahara forest in Japan. Once again, my Japanese is not perfect. I'm terribly sorry about it, but still, I have to include it. I can't limit myself to things I can pronounce. So, known as a sea of trees, the Sea of Trees, Aokigahara forest at the base of Mount Fuji, is infamous for being a site where many people have taken their own lives. So it's like a suicide forest. The dense foliage and rocky terrain create an eerie labyrinth environment. And this leads to, of course, the creation of legends of yureis, vengeful spirits, wandering the woods. Guides and forest workers have reported hearing unexplained wails and encountering shadowy figures on a daily basis. Now, the forest's tragic history and the unsettling quiet make it a perfect setting for a haunting tale. Then, number 3, I know it's been talked about, discussed, filmed, documented, up and down several times, but I just can't leave it out. And that is the ancient Ram Inn in England. So, this inn in Gloucestershire, England, dates back to 1145 and is considered one of the most haunted places in the UK. So it's built on an ancient pagan burial ground. That sort of laid the foundation, didn't it? And the inn has a history of sinister happenings, including witch trials and dark rituals. You have guests there that have reported encounters with a menacing incubus, poltergeists of various kinds, and the ghost of a young girl. The inn's creaky floors, hidden passages, and chilling ghost sightings create an atmosphere of fear and mystery alike. Let us take a closer look, because I'm not just going to tell you about the places, I'm also going to share some chilling ghost stories that is tied to each of these haunted locations. Now, if you are on YouTube, you can see this picture. It's of 2 men. I can describe it for those of you who are listening. There is a picture there of 2 men, an old picture from 1889. They are 2 men wearing plague masks and tools for disinfecting letters on Poveglia Island. And this is by Theodore Vale, 1889. So it's not as old as one could imagine, but this is like the 2nd or the 3rd wave of plague. So here it comes. Poveglia Island, Italy. Legend has it that Poveglia Island is haunted by the spirits of plague victims who were brought here to die. So visitors, they have reported hearing eerie wails and seeing ghostly apparitions of plague doctors and the sick. So it's not just the sick, it's also the doctors of the sick that probably actually caught the plague themselves and then died a very tragic death after helping other plague victims. So, one of the most famous stories is about a doctor who worked at the asylum on the island, though. And that was after the plague. So we are talking about maybe just on the border to our modern time. And we had this doctor. He was really cruel, sinister, he was horrible, and he was performing the most inhumane experiments on his patients. So he would make them, it was basically torture the way he was doing it. And this is during the era where it was actually the island of the asylum. So this was the asylum, and this was the doctor who was connected to the asylum. So it is said, legend has it, that the ghosts of his victims actually drove him mad, and that he eventually threw himself from the asylum's bell tower. far, far, far up in the sky, you know, not up in the sky, but far away from the actual site where he was performing these cruel experiments. So he ran up and then he threw himself from the asylum's bell tower. Now, here is the eerie part, because people who have visited, they claim that they can still hear the ringing of those bells. But those bells, they were removed years ago. So, we're going back to Japan, to the Aokigahara forest. Aokigahara, also known as the suicide forest, is actually steeped in sorrow and tragedy. So many people have entered the forest and never ever returned. And this is of course leading to a whole bunch of tales of yureis, or vengeful spirits, that is wandering among the trees. One story tells of a man who entered the forest and encountered a woman in a white dress. So here we have it, the white lady again. So she seemed lost and distressed. So of course, being the gentleman that he was, he offered to help her find her way out. As they walked, she suddenly disappeared. And then she left the man alone and terrified. And yeah, we do not know what happened to him, and we do not know how he could actually tell the tale either, or how he got out of the woods. We do not know. But another common tale is of people hearing footsteps behind them. This is actually quite common if you enter the forest and you have the balls to enter the forest, only to turn around and find nothing there. And then the eerie atmosphere and the tragic history of the forest, of course, give rise to countless ghostly encounters. Could they be just a product of our own imagination, though? Because we know that the forest is supposed to be haunted. We do not know. It depends what type of person you are. And then we go back to England again, to the ancient Ram Inn. It has such a dark and sinister reputation, and one of the most infamous stories is about a witch who was burned at the stake in the 1500s, and it is believed that her spirit haunts the inn, seeking revenge on those who stay there. So you have guests, they have reported feeling an icy touch and seeing the ghostly figure of a woman. And another chilling tale is of a young girl named Rosie who was murdered in the attic. And this is actually documented. She was murdered in the attic of the Ram Inn back in the days, because I believe I saw some kind of ghost program and they were really diving into this, you know. They were looking into all the records and everything. And it was documented, I think, that little Rosie was in fact murdered in the attic. So her ghost is said to appear to guests. She wants help, you know, so often she's accompanied by the sound of children crying. And the inn is also home to lots of poltergeists who delight in moving objects and creating a general sense of unease for those who visit. And here are a few spine-chilling ghost encounter stories from some of the haunted places that we have talked about. Well, the island in Italy, Poveglia Island. We have a tale of a nurse, because as recent as the early 2000s, there was a group of paranormal investigators. They actually visited the island to document any type of supernatural activity, which has become more and more, I wouldn't say normal, but more and more common these days. It's good TV, it's good radio, it's good podcasts, which is basically why I want to share my stories with you as well. But anyway, they wanted to document any supernatural activity. So among them was a nurse named Maria, and she was very skeptical because she didn't believe that this island was haunted. So she was actually exploring the old asylum on her own one night when she heard faint whispers echoing through the decayed hallways. She dismissed it as the wind. So she just continued her exploration. I'm not sure I would have dismissed it as the wind if that was me, but I don't know. Maybe it was it's again, it's up to the individual, isn't it? Because what you see and what you hear and how scared you are on these things. But anyway, she continued her exploration. And suddenly, as she was about to leave the premises, she felt a cold hand grip her shoulder. And when she turned around, she saw a shadowy figure dressed in a plague doctor's robe. The figure vanished into thin air, leaving Maria shaken and convinced that the spirits of Poveglia were in fact very much alive and real. So she changed her mind there. So yeah, I guess if you can't explain it, but you have experienced it, why not believe in it? It makes it more exciting, doesn't it, and more fun. So Aokigahara Forest, Japan again. We are talking about a lost hiker here from the late 1990s. His name was Kenji. And he decided actually to venture into Aokigahara Forest, drawn by its serene beauty and the lure of adventure. So as the sun began to set, he realized that he had lost his way. That is not something that you want to realize in the middle of this very, very renowned suicide forest. So panic set in as darkness enveloped the forest, and he heard footsteps behind him, and he turned to see a woman in a white kimono. Her face was very pale and expressionless, almost as if she had no features at all. And then she silently pointed to a narrow path. And Kenji, he was very grateful for the guidance, and he just followed her. And when he looked back to thank her, she had just vanished into thin air. She had disappeared. So he eventually found his way out, but he was haunted by this encounter, believing that the woman was, in fact, a yurei guiding him to safety. So I guess the yureis weren't all sinister, but could also sometimes be helpful. And then we are going back to England again, and the Ancient Ram Inn, one of my favorite places to study, to really enjoy seeing on screen. I would not dare, I don't know if I would have stayed the night there, maybe I would. But anyway, I think it is possible to stay the night there. You have to check out their website, Ancient Ram Inn, because they do take guests, and it is kind of a place where you can stay. So yeah, if you are looking for a nice holiday destination, like this family in this story we are going to hear about, then go ahead, book your stay, because it could be an experience of a lifetime, I guess. So in the 1980s, there was a family that stayed at the Ancient Ram Inn, because they were like going to a weekend getaway. And I do not understand how come you would bring your young children on a weekend getaway to such a haunted place, or such a very scary place. But that, I'm not gonna judge anyone, but I don't think that I would have done. But anyway, on the first night, their young daughter Emily woke up screaming, claiming that she had seen a little girl standing at the foot of her bed. So the parents, they dismissed it as a bad dream. Very, very grounded parents, I think. But the following night, they experienced unexplained phenomena themselves, because the door started slamming shut, and there was cold drafts, and they heard the sound of children crying. And the final straw came when Emily's mother saw the apparition of a young girl in old-fashioned clothing, her eyes filled with sorrow. The family just left the inn immediately, and they were convinced that the young girl was in fact the ghost of Rosie, the murdered girl, that it was still roaming the halls, maybe in the search for help. And I do have some more spine-chilling ghost encounter stories to give you, those good goosebumps here, because I have been lucky enough to receive some stories and tips from engaged listeners. And here they are. I just had to share them with you, the best ones. I got more, but unfortunately we can't take them all. But yeah, these are the best ones anyway. James is writing to me about the Edinburgh Castle in Scotland and the Phantom Piper. He writes, "Hi Lena and listeners, I would like to share a little bit about Edinburgh Castle and its rich history dating back to the 12th century. It is home to numerous ghostly tales. One of the most famous is that one of the Phantom Piper. Legend has it that centuries ago a piper was sent to explore the secret tunnels beneath the castle. He played his bagpipes as he ventured deeper into the darkness, allowing those above ground to track his progress. Suddenly the music stopped, and the piper was never seen again. To this day, visitors report hearing the faint sounds of bagpipes echoing through the castle's halls, believed to be the lost piper eternally wandering the tunnels." Thank you, James. That was really scary. I would like to visit, actually. I think, yeah, I could deal with that, definitely. And then we have this one sent in to me from Audrey. She lives in Paris, and she told us about Château de Brisson in France. Now, the Green Lady it is called. So this is not the White Lady, it's not the Grey Lady, but this is a Green Lady. So that's why I chose to include this one, because it kind of stands out a bit. So Château de Brisson, known as the Giant of the Loire Valley, is haunted by the spirit of Charlotte de Brise, also known as the Green Lady. So in the 15th century, Charlotte was caught in an affair and subsequently murdered by her own husband. Her ghost, dressed in a green gown, is said to roam the castle, her face bearing the marks of her violent death. Guests and staff have reported eerie encounters, such as hearing her moans in the dead of night and feeling an icy presence in the rooms she frequents. The sight of the Green Lady's spectral figure has left many visitors trembling in fear. Thank you so much, Audrey, for that eerie story. I'm actually tempted to go there and explore as well. And please, listeners, if you have any more stories or anything that you would like to comment on or discuss with these stories that I tell you now, please feel free. Comments on YouTube or send me an email. So now we are going to a very broken United States. And it's sent in via email to me from Ian. He lives in San Francisco, but he used to visit his grandparents in Louisiana when he was a child. So that is actually where he heard about the Myrtles plantation. And it scared him to pieces, he writes. So this is what he wrote. He calls it Chloe's Ghost. Now, the Myrtles plantation in Louisiana is notorious for its haunted history, with the tale of Chloe being one of the most chilling ones. Chloe was a slave who worked in the plantation's main house. After being caught eavesdropping, she was punished by having her ear cut off. Whoa! To exact revenge, she poisoned a birthday cake, resulting in the deaths of the plantation owner's wife and 2 children. Chloe was later hanged by her fellow slaves. Visitors to the plantation have reported seeing Chloe's ghost, identifiable by the green turban, once again green, interesting, she wore to hide her mutilated ear. So her apparition has been seen wandering the grounds, and eerie sightings of her peering through windows have left guests unnerved. I know I would have been as well. And these are all very eerie, terrifying stories, but the most terrifying story and tips that I received via email last week is this one from Violetta in Romania. Thank you, Violetta. And she writes, "One of the most terrifying haunted places on the planet is often considered to be the Hoia Baciu. It's spelled Hoia, and then a new word, Baciu. Hoia Baciu forest in Romania. Again, comments on my pronunciation, please. I want to make it right. So, known as the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania. This forest is infamous for its eerie atmosphere and unexplained phenomena. Here are some chilling details that I would like to share. Okay, So the Hoia-Baciu forest, mysterious phenomena. The forest is known for its twisted trees that spiral in clockwise patterns, creating an unsettling and otherworldly landscape. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, on my illustrated version of the podcast, you can see the trees because I had to Google them and put a picture in for you because they are out of this world. They are unbelievable. So you just have to see them. Or you can Google them for yourself. That's up to you. But anyway, back to Violetta's letter. Well, there is a circular dead zone where no vegetation grows, and scientific studies have failed to explain this phenomenon adequately. Again, I had to Google it. I put it out for you. It is totally weird and unexplainable. This is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. But it doesn't stop there. There's also ghostly encounters because locals and visitors alike have reported seeing ghostly apparitions, strange lights, unexplained shadows within the forest. And some of the shadows, she writes, are huge. They're huge and black and very, very eerie. So, yeah. One of the most famous tales involves a shepherd who disappeared in the forest along with his 200 sheep, never to be seen again. Another story tells of a young girl who emerged from the forest 5 years after disappearing, wearing the same clothes and this is the very eerie part, looking the same age as she was when she disappeared. So, yeah. But it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop with the twisted trees and the shadow monsters and the no vegetation circles and the ghostly apparitions and the strange lights and the unexplained shadows. It also is a home or a hotspot for paranormal activity, because in 1968 there was actually a military technician who reported seeing a UFO landing in the forest. And this UFO added to the forest's reputation for being a hotspot of paranormal activity, she writes. So it's UFO sightings as well. And the combination of this, you know, the mysterious phenomena, the UFO sightings and everything else really wraps up Hoia-Baciu as this week's probably most eerie example of paranormal place or haunted activity or anything terrifying haunted places on Earth. So, do you believe that these could be true? Have you encountered something yourself? Please send it to me. But now, next week's episode, do you believe in the creatures of the night? Because next week we are diving into the shadowy world of vampires. We are going to explore their origins, legends, and their lasting impact on popular culture. From ancient folklore to modern day myths, we'll uncover the secrets behind these enigmatic beings. Are vampires real? Do they walk among us? Tune in next week to find out and prepare yourself for a journey into the heart of darkness. You won't want to miss it. And remember that I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear from you all. Share your eerie stories, your comments and reflections, both in the comments on YouTube, social media, or send me them via email, heidebrennan@gmail.com, or find me on Facebook, Lena Heidebrennan. That's a wrap on tonight's Tales of Terror. So until next time, keep your lights on and your eyes open. The unknown is just a whisper away. Have a nice week, everyone, and thank you for listening.